Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and I just got back from going to watch my 19-year-old playing JUCO baseball, and I've been begging this kid to give me video of him that shows speeds, because that speed's all these guys care about. Been begging him for the last 6 months, and I was ecstatic after I sat behind the pitcher's or the home plate. And I got one of his friends on the team that had the radar gun to call out the numbers while he was pitching, and he was hitting, he hit as high as 86. So that's just for all of you that don't know. When your goal is to get to Division I baseball, until you as a lefty you have to get right up around where he is right now to be looked at. Righties have to throw harder. They have to be thrown into the 90s. But lefty, 80. Once you get to 86, and this is the fall of his sophomore year. So once you get to start touching those kind of numbers, they start taking you serious or start to look at you. And so I'm trying to help him, in the recruitment process and all, using my social media skills and all that I've learned the hard way. And so he is now posting up numbers that are getting very interesting. So I was very proud of him. This kid has worked his butt off and earned every single mile per hour. This kid's about 6'5", 235 now. I literally had to get on my tiptoes to give him a hug to leave. We've got a 296 XRP. The market's been kind of just sitting there and just kind of not doing a lot and all this. If it sits there and hangs around below $3, I will be going in and scooping up more. I haven't had a chance to do it. Now, these we've noticed a pattern here. The Litecoin people, they've figured out there's a reason that the XRP community gets most of the views in crypto. It's because it's one of the only real armies that's out there, because people have done their research and they realize there's something going on here that's not going on in many of these other communities. That's why they point at the XRP community and say those are bots, because they know that they're the only ones that aren't bots, or one of the only ones that are not bots. That's been confirmed by previous engineer Paul Barron, who actually ran programs that he developed over 10 years on it. So, but the Litecoin guys have figured out that they can get views. I was happy to help them get a few views. This guy right here is challenging anybody in the XRP army to a debate. XRP versus Litecoin. So I went to Grok real quick and I said, the debate's over, but look on the bright side. We did get you some of the views you were wanting. Litecoin average speed 2.5 to 5 minutes. Average fee 1 penny to 10 cents. Scalability 56 transaction per second. XRP 3 to 5 seconds. Below pennies. Average fee scales to 1,500 transactions per second. In summary, XRP outperforms Litecoin in both speed and cost, positioning it as a stronger option for institutional or high-frequency payments. And then they throw Litecoin a bone. While Litecoin remains reliable, decentralized alternative for retail use with Bitcoin-like security. The translation there is for retail use, because we know it can't compete with XRP in retail or institutional, and therefore we're going to throw it a bone. Now, unfortunately for this guy, someone accepted his invitation. I've seen this movie before too. I've watched one of these Bitcoin guys try to debate him, Matt Hamilton, before, and it is cringe embarrassing for these guys when they go against Matt Hamilton. It will be fun to pass around the videos, but I feel sorry for the Litecoin guy because it will be a disaster. Now, here, you got to watch this. This is Michael Saylor. He's calling us all bot. Anybody that criticizes MicroStrategy has to be a bot, right?
Even I notice in times of success, like just of late with our company's never been more successful, and yet the amount of hate and toxicity
There's no hate
that
here.
gets posted online has never been greater. And then I'll drill down on some of these, on the people posting, all the negativity and the hate and the criticism.
Negativity about it.
And here's what I see oftentimes. I see it's a person that's never interacted with anybody before, and they have 328 followers, and they share none with me. And I look a little bit, and I'm like, this is not even a person. Mm-hmm. This is a bot. And it turns out, I think, that a lot of the toxic, inflammatory behavior online is actually cyber marketing or guerrilla marketing. So
I'm not guerrilla marketing. I'm no bot. My criticism is very clear. And I said not bot here, just legit questions about someone issuing more shares of their stock to buy a high-risk asset that can go down as much as 80+% in down markets. I would say the same thing if he was issuing shares to go buy XRP. Everything's volatile right now in crypto. It's all high risk right now. That's why I've been talking about don't lend your XRP. Don't borrow against your XRP right now. This market is still young. It's not the time. The time will come. It's coming in the future. Focus on keeping your XRP secure right now. And it's not just that, but there's also, there are all sorts, I've seen it, there's all sorts of companies that pop up. Oh, we're going to give yield on XRP, or we're going to do this. And these companies are coming out, and there are people that just go and grab for the next shiny object, and you can't do that in crypto, folks. Track records, it depends. It depends. You got to have legitimate companies that are doing these things, and a lot of them, it's not that they're not legitimate. They might be, but in this business, you got to have a track record. You can't just jump. Oh, yield, I'll take 5-10% yield. No, it's dangerous right now. You've got to really be careful. And right now, there's a lot of companies that do have long track records of being able to store your digital assets with institutional custody. There's a lot of companies, if you prefer a hard wallet, that have been around for a long time, that are legit, that you could go and you could store your XRP on a hard wallet. That's why I keep saying that this stuff that he's doing is like reckless in my opinion. And I'm not saying that Bitcoin's not going to do well. I think it will. I think that in the short term, he will do really well with what he's doing. It's not that, but it's still highly risky what he's doing. Now, check this out from Eleanor Terrett. Senate Dems say they want to work with their Republican colleagues to move forward quickly on bipartisan crypto market structure legislation. Folks, they all know that this is a national security issue. There's a reason that Vladimir Putin is saying that the U.S. is trying to buy their treasuries with stablecoin. This is national security stuff. I think it always was. And Paul Barron here is saying my DC connections say this is moving very fast in the right direction. That doesn't mean that we're not going to see a lot of drama. I think we are going to see a lot of drama between now and somewhere in October when they pass this stuff, because all these politicians want to get their 5 minutes of TV time to show how important they are and get reelected. But it's happening. Number of accounts currently active on the XRP ledger crossed the 7 million mark today. We just got a few billion to go, folks. I believe that there will be a day when there are billions of XRP wallets. Now look, once again, while you listen to Brian Armstrong from Coinbase talk about Bitcoin, just think XRP, because if I hope Bitcoin does go to 1 million, because if it does, just imagine what the XRP price will be.
There's a couple of big tailwinds now, which lead me to think that there's a good chance Bitcoin could be at $1 million per coin, by 2030 or so. And that's the relationship between interest rates and stocks. It can always be complex. Like for a long time, people thought these things were positively correlated. And now I think over time, people are starting to think of Bitcoin almost like gold or something. It's something people might flee to in times of uncertainty. So it's a hybrid between those two things. But I try not to get too caught up in the short-term trends. What I try to do is look at the long-term trends. And there's a couple of big tailwinds now, which lead me to think that there's a good chance Bitcoin could be at $1 million per coin, by 2030 or so. And that's partly it's the regulatory clarity that's emerging. I mentioned the Genius Act, and now with market structure legislation, hopefully getting close. That could be a major moment. We also saw the United States of America now has a strategic Bitcoin reserve. So if the United States government is going to begin holding Bitcoin, I think that's going to be a massive driver of demand, and the rest of the G20 countries will probably follow suit. And then the last thing I'd say is that we saw recently the launch of the Bitcoin ETFs by a number of different firms, and Coinbase is actually powering 80% of the custody for those that are out there. But we're seeing a ton of institutional money continue to flow into Bitcoin now that these ETFs are live. So there's a lot of positive tailwinds for Bitcoin, and I think that there's never going to be more than 21 million Bitcoin ever made in the world, and lots of pools of capital still haven't gotten access to it. So that tells me this thing has a long way to run.
And so does XRP. This is good stuff from Jim Rickards right here.
What's going on now? A couple other threads here. The BRICS are not working on an alternative currency. They are working on an alternative payment system. That payment system is different than a currency. They're working on rail
that I think will interoperate with the XRP ledger.
Fiber optic cable, custodians, settlement, clearance, etc., for local currency transactions in rubles and yuan and Brazilian reais and other local currencies, but also dollar transactions. They still transact in dollars. They don't want to transact through a settlement system that the U.S. can interdict. So they've created their own settlement system, their own clearance.
That doesn't mean they won't interoperate with it.
It's their own custodians, etc., which you could even have, which could basically be used for any currency. So the BRICS don't need another currency. And here's why: they already have one. It's gold. In other words, so you're Russia, you're selling a bunch of oil and natural gas to China, you're getting paid in yuan. You're China, you're selling a bunch of manufactured goods to Russia, you're getting paid in rubles. There's
This is what it's always been about, folks, is the big picture of what's coming. The more about that in the group. You can go to daixrp.com to join the Patreon. If you'd rather join through YouTube, click join below any of these videos, or you can hit subscribe on X. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe, hit the like button, tell your friends and family. Away we go.